So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and welcome to my Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra versus iPhone 14 Pro Max full comparison. Now in this video, we're going to break them down and help you decide which phone is for you. Now they are about 6 months apart. The iPhone did release on September 16, 2022, Samsung February 17th, so just about a week ago. So not really long ago with that phone. So, the iPhone 15's coming will be probably closer, but we're still going to compare these because it's what you can buy right now. So beginning with the price points. So the Samsung does start a little higher, $1199. However, there's a key thing to note about that. That's because it starts at 256 gigabytes of storage on device. Now I got the 512 gig for the same price because I did pre-order this. Now the iPhone does start at $1099, but it gives you a tiny 128 gig. And I say tiny, that's not tiny for a lot of people, but when you're doing 4K video and stuff, and you have old iCloud stuff, that can fill up very fast. Both phones do go all the way up to 1 terabyte of storage. So yeah, that's basically the pricing there, and you can do trade-ins on both of them to reduce their prices. So they're pretty closely matched in the price area. Let's talk about the bodies and the build. So they couldn't be more similar yet more different. And what do I mean? Well, they're similar in the fact that they're both large devices. They're both trying to target the same kind of consumer, somebody who wants an all-out premium phone and they want a large phone. However, where they're very different is in their shape. You can see Samsung is a lot more boxy looking. Some people do like that. And the Apple device is more curved at the corners at the top, but the iPhone device is more flat. So if you want a more flat screen, this is going to be your option. Now, the Galaxy definitely got flatter than before, and I'm definitely noticing that in my usage. It feels flatter. They're getting closer and closer while still retaining a little bit of a curved edge there, just barely on the edge to let you know this is still the Samsung device. So they did do that. You also see when it comes to their designs, we do have a punch hole here, Infinity O, and then we have a dynamic island. Now dynamic island does have functionality, whereas this really doesn't have much functionality, but you do sacrifice having that big blotch on your screen right there versus that. Both of them to me are fine. I just personally want an all screen phone with nothing intruding on any, like just full screen, under display cameras, please, on both. Now on the back, you'll see that Samsung's design definitely shows probably a cleaner camera look. It's just simple. On the back of the iPhone, they have this big hump there. Now, I do like that they're both unique in that if you see either one of these phones, you're going to know that's the Samsung, you're going to know that's the Apple device. Now, on the back texture material, you also find etched glass, matte type feeling glass here. Neither pick up a lot of fingerprints, so that's pretty good there. Now, because I got the limited edition, I do have these aluminum matte looking edges here. I do love them. Some people might not agree. Some people might like a more shiny side, but for me, this is super clean. This phone never really gets dirty here on the edges or on the back. So just a super clean design all around. Now on the iPhone, it does have stainless steel, no matter which model you go with. So you will be getting some greasy smudges on the side of this phone if it's not in a case. And even if it is in a case, sometimes things leak under the case, like dust and debris and stuff, and it still gets messy in there. So just a little bit of a dirtier design in terms of, finger oils and stuff like that. But I do think the stainless steel polish makes it look a little more premium when it comes to that. But other than that, both phones are absolutely gorgeous, and I don't think you can go wrong either way. It's really down to subjective preference. Do you like a boxy design, or do you like more curved on the edge design? Do you like a flatter design, or do you like, this slightly edged screen here on the Samsung? Either way you go, you're getting one of the best looking and feeling phones on planet Earth. Okay, so talking numbers here, the Samsung actually weighs 234 grams, so it definitely is lighter than the 240 grams you'll find on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Do you really feel that weight? Not really. They both feel like heavy phones in the pocket, but Samsung is slightly lighter. Now, Samsung also is doing IP68 just like iPhone, but it's a little bit worse because it can only do 1.5 meters up to 30 minutes. The iPhone is more likely to survive if you drop this thing in the lake. Don't drop it in the lake. If you drop this in water and it's there and you didn't even notice it was there, it's more likely to survive a deeper resistance. So definitely that's strong on the iPhone. However, we do have a super tough armor aluminum frame on the Samsung device, and Gorilla Glass Victus 2 glass on the front and the rear. You do have Gorilla Glass on both front and rear of the iPhone as well. At the end of the day, iPhone has slightly more water resistance. Galaxy might be slightly more durable in certain areas, but overall they're pretty similar. They're both incredibly strong when it comes to their build quality, so you're not going to be missing out on either. Okay, so let's talk about the Samsung made displays on both phones. Yes, you heard that right. Samsung makes the displays on both phones. But we'll talk about the Galaxy S23 Ultra here first. 120 Hz dynamic AMOLED 2X display. This is HDR10, 1200 nits with a 1750 nit peak brightness. Now, what's cool about this phone is that you don't got to wait to get out in sunlight to enable that extra brightness. You could actually do it right here from this quick panel up here. You'll see turn off adaptive brightness, and check it out right there. You can just put the extra brightness. This allows you to take full advantage of the maximum brightness capabilities of the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Also within display settings, you'll find eye comfort shield, and they also added enhanced comfort mode this year, which will adjust the color tones to make eye strain less on your eyeballs. So definitely I've used it, and it's really good at nighttime. It really does take away those super vibrant zingy colors and really tones it down so you can read more comfortably or consume content more comfortably at nighttime. You can also tweak the resolution here on the Samsung. You can take it between different resolutions, so it's still more customizable than the iPhone. It's also a little bit sharper at over 500 ppi with this one at 460. So we do have an always on display on here as well, and it's slightly bigger than this iPhone over here, and they have a similar width, but the Samsung has more screen to body ratio. That means you get more screen to the body versus the iPhone over here. Now in actual practice, the Samsung display here is gorgeous. Anytime you're scrolling through Instagram, or you're just using YouTube videos or whatever you're watching, this display is just beautiful. Now what's really nice about it too is that there's no creases. It's not a foldable phone, so it's incredibly enjoyable to use every day. It's not like we haven't experienced this before. The S22 Ultra was similar, but it's still playing at the top of the game. Now also, I will say that having the flat display, while it's great on the iPhone, the edge display does make it feel kind of premium here on the edges as it spills over just slightly. In addition, this display here, because it's kind of a squared boxy design, it kind of feels like you're using a little tablet over here in your hand most of the time. So it's got a nice spacious kind of feel. And if you're on your phone a lot, you're really gonna love that about the Samsung. And other than that, there's not much else to say. I think the boxy design can be not very ergonomic though when you're trying to one-hand things, but luckily there is a one-handed mode here on this panel as well. In addition, on the Samsung phone, you can go ahead and turn this into landscape mode. I actually don't have it enabled right now. You can rotate it like this though, and kind of use it like a little tablet. That's something you can't do on the iPhone. And the last thing I want to point out about the Samsung is that it does have a much more usable space area with their split screen modes. So you can go ahead and split the screens and stuff like that. And that's really just good, because don't you want to just have the ability to take advantage of the panel here? And you'll go ahead and go over here. You can click the multitasking, and you could just multitask with things. You can flip the screens around. You can also add more in here. So if I go over here, you can actually add a pop view window right in the middle and drag it around. So Samsung continuing to show why their display experience might be just better than the iPhone. Simply taking advantage of it, still giving you a premium looking panel. And overall, I would say it's just brighter than the iPhone. Now let's give the iPhone its fair share of credit here. Really well balanced display. It's not overly vibrant. It's just really super accurate and incredibly smooth and enjoyable. With the ProMotion on here, 120 Hertz, this adaptive refresh actually goes down all the way to 1 Hertz, 10 Hertz, something like that. It's really low. So definitely the iPhone has a very great, display when it comes to that smooth feel. Also, the animations with iOS and ProMotion is just incredible as well. Really sharp text on here, but not quite as sharp as something like a Sony 4K or even the Samsung right here. This one also does have an always on display, just like the Samsung device does over here. So if we go ahead and turn that off, you'll see always on for this one as well. And in recent software updates, they allowed you to black it out on the iPhone. Now also, the iPhone display, because it's flat, I feel like it's easier and more ergonomic to manage day to day with one hand, especially you know, when you're just scrolling and stuff like that. It just feels more like I have a solid grip on it. Now, what I don't like about the iPhone though, and I'm not trying to knock it, but the dynamic island in video, I don't really like pinching in because the video doesn't look very good when you pinch in. But I do like that it's kind of more of an accurate color tone. It's not super, you know, vivid. Now, Samsung does have that, but I still find that Apple has nailed it with just the accurate natural color tone. It just looks, it's like a good mix between vibrancy and natural, and we don't have to tweak any modes. That's pretty good. So other than that, we do have the ability to punch into things like this. There's haptic feedback, haptic keyboard on this display, and there's not much else to talk about. It's a flat iPhone panel, and it gets really bright. Actually, it gets brighter than the iPhone or than the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, specifically outdoors at 2000 nits of brightness. So yeah, I would say that if you want a more natural looking display with a little bit of vibrancy, smooth, and you want to interact with Dynamic Island up there, you'll definitely like the iPhone. Really nice to use this feature up here, Dynamic Island, when you get calls and stuff like that. If you want to interact with something new like that and you want a flat display, the iPhone would be for you. If you want the more vibrant display, you want the more, I would say, usable large screen, that's going to be the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. It definitely pops more than the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now, when it comes to software, with the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, what you're getting is the Android operating system with One UI 5. Now, One UI 5 is 5.1 actually, is very customizable. You can see right here within the application, you do have wallpapers, icons, AODs, always on display modes. You have your whole Galaxy theme store, and you have your Samsung suite of features along with Google's suite of features. So you kind of are working within two ecosystems here, which is kind of like overwhelming at times. But if you just stick to one or the other, you can kind of just avoid the other. So what I mean by that is you can either use a bunch of the Google services and never touch Samsung stuff, or you can use the Samsung stuff and never really touch the Google stuff. Kind of confusing, but at the same time, once you pick one, you'll be good to go. Now, I will say also that the iPhone definitely has a more simple kind of operating system. You do have just app library, home screen, app pages. That's about it. Software updates and really great apps. But the Samsung is probably the more fun phone to use if you want to really tweak around, play around with your smartphone. One other thing I would say about the Samsung phone though is it does take me more time to set it up when I initially get the phone, because there's just more to do with this phone. There's more to tweak, there's more to move around. I have to move around applications and little, you know, I have to add these things and move them where I want, these buttons and stuff. You kind of got to do that in Control Center as well for iPhone, but I just find that I'm going through this phone more, you know, playing with it longer to get it to where I want it to be. So there's a little bit more of a setup here with the Samsung, but once you get the hang of it, you'll know where everything is, and it gets pretty easy. It's nothing like the days of TouchWiz. It's a lot cleaner than those days. And you just have a lot of features with basically everything. You know, all the things you would complain about, why doesn't Apple do this in their phone? Samsung basically has that. So yeah, if you want every little feature in the kitchen sink, get the Samsung phone. You're really going to enjoy it. Now with the iPhone, it's iOS. We know that. Super clean software updates all the time. Your phone looks like everybody else's with an iPhone. That's could be a con or a pro. You know, you got AirDrop. You do have Quick Share on the, you know, Galaxy as well. They also have Google's sharing feature as well. So we do have Nearby Share or Quick Share from Samsung. So definitely you do have quite a bit of options here. Again, doubling up on that Google and Samsung software. But over here with the iPhone, you do have just simplicity. If you're looking for something more than simplicity, you'll definitely love that Samsung phone. I would say a lot of people say that iPhone's getting boring. You know, one of the reasons they're probably saying that is because it's just kind of the same all the time. It kind of starts to feel like an appliance in your life, just something that just works well and all the time. And boring can be great for some consumers, but for those of you itching for something a little different, you're just getting super bored of that experience, this might be a great option for you to go ahead and try out. 4 years of software updates, though, major, and probably 5 or 6. So longer term, iPhone is still better in the software when it comes to that. Like if you just want to keep it and keep being updated and keep being update on this phone. I'm going to talk about performance as well, but I also wanted to mention Samsung DeX on board here is definitely a really game-changing feature for those of you who are not, you know, owning a laptop or a computer. You're just going to be putting your money into a phone. You can definitely have a full computer experience just by plugging a USB-C cable into an HDMI on your monitor, get a keyboard, and you're ready to rock out. So that's pretty awesome for the Samsung. Talking about performance though, there are specific performance modes you can enable here on the Samsung to get a little bit better. Not that one. You can enable performance mode to get a little bit better experience on this phone, and definitely does very good with this Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. You've seen in my speed test, it basically was doing better in some areas in the 14 Pro Max. And these days, you know, performance has been good, but feeling this phone get even better at performance and feeling it even more refined, I'm really impressed with what Samsung did here. The phone itself definitely doesn't feel like it gets too warm, and it just can do everything super snappy, super fast. And finally, if you've been always thinking, I'm not getting a Samsung phone because they lag or they're going to be stuttery, they're not going to be like as enjoyable and smooth as the iPhone, well, you'd be mistaken, because this one is at that level now. So definitely, if you're thinking about that, that's the thing holding you back, go ahead and try this phone out. You're going to be pretty happy. Now, that you're going to have to get used to the software if you're not used to that. But in terms of the performance, it's fine. Now, Apple here on the benchmark still wins it out all the time. But you've seen in my speed test that they definitely lost to Samsung in multiple areas, including wildlife. So definitely not everything is going to feel faster on the iPhone. But I will say the iPhone still kind of feels a little smoother, I would say, with the animations, just by a hair. There's just something about it. It still feels slightly more polished. And I'm not trying to say Samsung ain't there. It's definitely doing much better. But Apple's operating system still feels a little bit more polished, a little bit more smooth. I think Samsung is like just like an inch away from being at the exact same level. Much better than last year. But Apple still reigns supreme, I think, in this area. Now, with the iPhone, I forgot to mention, you also do have True Tone, and you have the Eye Comfort Shield here. So they got similar competing features in pretty much every single area. Performance wise though, if you're looking to game, you know, you can do it on both. Neither is going to be too warm, and you're going to have fast experience. It really just doesn't matter anymore. It comes down to which software and which apps do you want to use. That should be the real deciding factor here. Now, one area where Apple just cannot compete with Samsung is the stylus in the body. Now, this is arguably a useless feature for some people. But, you know, if you do like taking notes, you are a creative person, you are an artist, you will definitely like the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra's S Pen. It's super smooth, super reliable. And not only that, they do have a pen up community where you can draw and, you know, see other artworks from other people. You can screen write, select. One of the areas I find this to be really cool too is kind of when you are tired of using your finger for scrolling and you just want to kind of scroll through things and just kind of give your finger a break, kind of let the pen do the work. It's kind of fun to just use it as a navigating tool. Like, it just can at times be useful. Also, if there's something that's little to click or something, you just want to highlight something and you don't want to deal with clicking it yourself, using the pen is kind of useful. In addition to that, I find that just quickly jot down a note. Say you're on the phone, somebody tells you you need to write down a number. That's also pretty useful as well. So 773606. I'm not going to write a full number because I don't want anybody to think that, you know, to call that number. But yeah, you can't really compete with Samsung S Pen, Apple. So sorry about that. We don't have no Apple Pencil just yet on here. There is one answer though. It's called Freeform. Came in one of the recent updates, and they're giving you this way to be more creative with your iPhone, but you still got to use your finger. So I don't find it that useful whatsoever. And it's kind of a small screen to get brainstorming on a little iPhone. I much prefer to use a laptop or a spreadsheet or docs or something like that, or even, you know, some other big board on, you know, a big screen. So I would say an Apple Pencil going into the body would be an incredible thing, but I don't know if Apple would ever do that. I'm just saying, you can't really compete here, even though Freeform was an attempted answer, I feel like. Now, when it comes to storage, Samsung is giving you, you know, like I say, up to 1 terabyte, but let's talk about the RAM a little bit. You get 12 gigabytes of RAM here. For the iPhone, you are going to get yourself 6 gigabytes of RAM, so we're not even at 8 here. So the base model RAM for the iPhone is less than the base model. It's actually the highest end model RAM on the iPhone 14 Pro Max is less than the base 128 or 256 gig S23 Ultra. So the 12 gig of RAM is like double that of the iPhone. Some people will say, well, you don't really need it on the iPhone, and they'd be pretty much correct. What you do on an iPhone, you really don't need that much RAM. but having it is kind of like a peace of mind long term for the Samsung. I think the Samsung definitely needs at least 8 to be super performing, but having 12 allows this phone to hold applications a little bit more than the iPhone. I feel like, if we're pound for pound, if we were to put 20 or 40 apps, the Samsung probably would hold more just because it has twice the RAM on board. So yeah, that is a win for Samsung, having double the RAM. So let's get on to one of the biggest areas to talk about with these phones, and that is the camera department. So we'll begin by talking about the Samsung. So you do have 200 megapixel main sensor, but you have to enable it. It's not on by default. It shoots at like 12 megapixels by default. You can also go to 50 megapixels. The Samsung phone can go 3x optical, 10x optical, 30x digital, and 100 times digital as well, which gives you ridiculous amounts of zoom. On that ultra wide camera, you can do macro shots as well on the Samsung. In addition to that, you have a ton of versatility with the zoom, we know that, but you also have a nightography mode, which gives you really good night photos. In addition to that, expert raw, pro video, food, panoramic. Look at all the features. They're all here, and they're all right within the camera. You don't got to go all the way into settings. Settings is right here within the camera as well. And you'll see much more. You can add watermarks, advanced video options, and you just have a ton you can do. Also, video can go up to 8K on here, 8K 30. So I would say feature for feature, you just have more features on the Samsung phone. Now, results, I'm going to show you them in a minute, but I can tell you they're super vibrant, super clear. Focusing is amazing on this phone. It's darn near a perfect camera for a smartphone on this Samsung phone, and it's super versatile. The front-facing camera also improved. The 12 megapixel on the front is awesome. It also can back out, which is pretty good because, Samsung phones before, I wasn't really impressed with their front-facing cameras, but now they're really good overall. So definitely the front-facing camera has improved. Now let's go ahead, and also I wanted to mention, I did take this out. The cameras were super stable under, video, running, things like that, movement. I mean, it's ridiculously smooth. Like it was on a gimbal. Like you didn't even need to ever put it on any gimbal ever. Now the iPhone just gives you a really solid professional-like camera. 3x optical, 2x, 1x. You have that macro mode you can tweak on and off. The raw mode's right there. Video, 4K 60, really sharp video, probably the smoothest video out there. And honestly, it's still pretty close call on the video. You definitely probably want to consider iPhone there if you want to do video. Cinematic and then portrait modes are awesome. Panoramic modes are awesome as well. Now, the front-facing camera, what I love about iPhones is that they always match up very well with the back. And I still kind of like the iPhone camera better on the front. But anyway, at the end of the day, after testing these two out, it's at the point now where I think I could definitely just use the Samsung phone and be happy with it. I used to just want to use the iPhone for the video camera, but Samsung has definitely caught up here for sure. And they have actually surpassed Apple in a lot of feature areas as well. They just give you more versatility with this camera, and the ability to print out big pictures with a 200 megapixel camera. It's just amazing what you can do on these two phones when it comes to photography. So take a look at my samples and videos and let me know your thoughts on which one you thought performed better. All right, and here's the front-facing camera on the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, 4K at 60. Let me know your thoughts on what this looks like right here. Now, I'm gonna jiggle this a little because I jiggled it on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. There we go. Just getting an idea of the smooth motion, stuff like that. Let me know your thoughts below. So here's a front-facing video test of the iPhone 14 Pro Max, 4K at 60. Let me know your thoughts on the quality of this down below. I am using this camera with no microphones attached. This is just purely the phone right here. Jiggled a little bit, almost dropped it. Let me know your thoughts though. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and test this Quad HG super steady mode. I'm gonna start running right now. And you can kind of see the Galaxy S23 Ultra, how it does in its super steady mode. Let's go ahead and flip it over to the iPhone. All right, so now we're in the action mode for the iPhone 14 Pro Max 2.8K. Kind of see how it does. I am running right now. And that's kind of how that's going to perform on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So let me know your thoughts. Which one you thought was better? Now, when it comes to their battery life, the Samsung does have the bigger battery at 5,000 milliamp hour. So definitely a bigger battery on here. And I will say that under heavy usage, I feel like the Samsung has been doing a little bit better than for me, but the iPhone's still winning it out when it comes to the standby time, still much better. However, what I can definitely tell you is that Samsung has improved their standby time. It doesn't creep down as fast as it used to. However, still not as good as the iPhone. I will say that both of these phones didn't leave me wanting for a charger middle of the day. They're both really good for heavy day usage all day. But I feel like Apple is still slightly more efficient in the battery life, but Samsung doing much better than the S22 Ultra. This one is definitely a recommend. At the end of the day, what I've experienced so far, I can just tell you, I didn't actually test the numbers. I just been using both phones. They both got SIMs in them. I can tell you, both of them, I was finishing the day with more than enough battery life to spare. With the iPhone, I was finishing around 48, 47. With the Samsung, around 39, 41. So they both really were making it easily through a day. So battery life, it's not really, even though this one has the bigger size, don't be thrown off by the specs. Either way you go, you're getting a full day. But these aren't the best battery phone I've ever seen, though. They're both still power hungry because they're very big devices, but they have enough juice for the whole day. That's basically what I can say. Running them with GPS, running camera 4K, you're really going to drain these and you're going to need a charge. Just point blank. Like if you're going out to do photography and videography for hours and hours, you might want to bring a battery charger or something like that. If you're going to be running in your car, doing a long trip, doing GPS maps, that's going to suck any phone's battery. So you're going to want a car charger. Other than that, just a regular day use, both of them easily making it all day. And when it comes to phone call quality, I'm happy to report that the Apple device definitely finally gets full bars everywhere. So does Samsung. They've been doing that for years. The Samsung device, definitely, I like some of the features when you're actually in call, but they have a really loud speaker as well, louder than the iPhone. So it's probably a slightly better phone for phone calls as well. And also, you don't have to play around with that eSIM stuff because this does have a SIM card tray on the Samsung plus eSIM supports. You get to choose. It's your choice. On Apple, there is no SIM card tray. You are forced to use eSIM. So that's really going to be something that you have to decide if you want to do right now. If not, just use an iPhone 13 model and you'll be good to go. Now, when it comes to audio performance, the Samsung was slightly louder than the iPhone 14 Pro Max, around 1 decibel. Both of them super loud speakers, though. They will blast out any room for sure. And they'll definitely have really loud speakerphone as well for, taking speakerphone calls. For the Samsung, keep in mind to get the loudest audio, you have to turn on Dolby Atmos though. It's not on by default. So go ahead and go to your sound quality and effects settings and go ahead and turn that on to get your best audio. Now, I just want to quickly talk about biometrics. With the Samsung, we talked about in the review, it does have a face unlock and in-display security, the in-display fingerprint sensor. Now, the Samsung, because you don't have to look at it, you don't even have to have the screen on, it is a faster unlock method. And if you're wearing a mask, which not many people do, but if you still do, it's easier than the iPhone. In addition, at times at nighttime, the Face ID can be blocked by just not having enough light. So the Samsung definitely, quicker. But if you like unlocking with your face, because that method is just super easy and lazy, I mean, it's a good thing. I don't say lazy to be condescending. I don't say lazy to say like you're lazy. I'm saying like it's a easy, you don't got to do nothing. Just look. Like you actually have to press it on the Samsung. So if you like that, which I personally love that because I find it efficient, you'll love Face ID. I think it's really down to personal preference. It doesn't really matter. Both of them unlock, and they both have great ways to unlock. It doesn't really matter. Both of them do unlock, and they both have great ways to unlock devices. Now, also talking about connectivity, I will say both of them are at the highest standards, 5.3. Both of them do have Wi-Fi 6, but the Samsung wins with Wi-Fi 6E. However, that Wi-Fi 6E on board is not really going to benefit you too much if you don't have a Wi-Fi 6E router. So keep that in mind. There are advancing technologies you're going to have to upgrade to. Also, Samsung is ahead here, in my opinion, for transfer. You do have USB-C 3.2 via this OTG cable over here, Lightning at 2.0. I mean, come on, Apple. Let's get with the USB-C times already. It's time for that already. Lastly, Samsung also does offer more color options. Phantom Black, Green Cream, Lavender Graphite, Sky Blue, Lime, Red, and there's even a BMW edition of this phone. So yeah, there's a lot of colors and stuff. Space Black, Silver, Gold, Deep Purple on the iPhone, and that's about it. You might see a spring colorway arrive soon. Maybe it'll be a red iPhone 14 Pro Max. I don't know. They usually drop a spring colorway, so let's see what happens. At the end of the day, let's break it down here. Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra versus iPhone 14 Pro Max. Which is the better pick? Honestly, I think Samsung has won this round. They just have all around, they've basically took everything the iPhone does and did it a little bit better from a hardware standpoint. It's subjective in the sense of the shape of these phones, what feels better, what looks better. I'm not talking about that, but from a technological standpoint, I think Samsung is definitely ahead. They're just playing at a different level here, and I think Apple needs to catch up in some areas. However, that doesn't mean that people won't prefer this iPhone 14 Pro Max as a decision over that phone. It's the ecosystem that matters, the Apple brand that matters to a lot of people, their accessories, their content they own, and they just love how iPhone works. So there's still millions of people that would choose that phone over this phone. But from a pure technological standpoint, in my opinion, Samsung has won this round. What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section of this video. If you found it helpful, entertaining, informing, do me a favor, click the like button for me, subscribe if you haven't already. Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Be sure to be well, and peace.